3 short manga that you should have read, but if you didn't, that's cool, let me put you on game. Now the 3 manga series I'm going to be talking about today is Innocent, which is 99 chapters long, Ajin, which is 86 chapters, and finally Fire Punch, which is 83 chapters long. The whole caveat to this video is a completed manga series that's under 100 chapters. And yes, Innocent does have a part 2 called Innocent Rogue, which I have yet to read, but it's on my list. But just for the sake of this video, I think Innocent has something very unique about it that I'd like to share with you guys, and just recommend it because I think it's a beautiful story, especially with the art and the visual storytelling, but we'll get to that point. And I won't be talking about spoilers. It's going to be a very surface level introduction to each series and highlight one special attribute that I think each one has in its own regard. I will also go in order of the longest to the shortest, so that would be first up, Innocent by Shinichi Sakamoto. I would go as far as saying Innocent is a masterclass on visual storytelling. And I would say that comfortably. I personally wanted to read the physical volumes just because the art is so nice. Shinichi Sakamoto did his homework, and it's an in-era piece back from like the 1770s of France. The House of Sanson is the family that does the king's executions. So they're directly connected to the king, but they're technically of low status. So they don't hold any weight to make decisions or anything like that. Our main character is Charles Henry Sanson. He is the next head of the family, but he doesn't believe that executions are necessarily right. He has this own view of the world, and we see his perception kind of expand, narrow, but then expand again. He loses track of himself at different points throughout the story, and it's him remembering he is an innocent man himself. Yes, he carries out these executions by decree of the king, but that doesn't make him a murderer, a killer. He is putting to rest people that have done wrong in the king's eyes. And back then, it's a more brutal, more savage time. But I really love the history because I've learned things about it from that story that I didn't know before. Maybe things that I just kind of clicked out on or didn't pay attention in school. But I did enjoy that aspect of it. There are some very sus moments just because of the time it's taking place in, and it is a dramatic retelling of history. So I don't know exactly what all was embellished upon, but there's certain moments that are a bit jarring. Altogether though, I think it's a fantastic read. Looking through the art, it just feels enriching. You get your investment of time back pretty early on. Shinichi Sakamoto does a great job of using different symbolism for the beheadings. We don't really see any heads get cut off by Charles Henry Sanson, for quite a while. It's always depicted in some way of a fruit getting smashed open. There's a lot of symbolic storytelling in this. So if you're into that kind of thing and you like, in-era pieces or you like that rich art, no one can doubt this man's pen game. There's some very deep storytelling here, and it has good character work. His sister Marie, she's the star of the show. Innocent Rogue, she becomes the main character essentially. And when you see from where she started from and where she ends up, it's a pretty dramatic character arc, but it's done very well. It's a little dramatic to believe she's 11 when she does her first execution, I believe, or maybe she's 13. But towards the end of the story, she finishes out at 19, and then that leads into Innocent Rogue. My memory may be a bit spotty on that, but I think it's pretty close. Either way, though, the way he draws her is beautiful. Her conviction is strong. She doesn't really ever sell herself out, but there's moments when I'm reading about the main character, and I feel like he kind of sold himself out a bit. But we also have to remember, these are real human beings being talked about, just in a dramatic fashion. One thing I do want to say that I think is really cool about this too is you get to see the invention of the guillotine, and how that came about. There's things like that in the series where they talk about the style of execution, or even in the first omnibus, the fact that the House of Sanson, the head of the family, would have to behead a lion. I think it was a lion or a tiger in front of high-ranking people in the aristocracy. It's very gory and it's pretty savage as well. So if you're a bit squeamish, might not be your thing. But let's move on. The next one's Ajin, Demi-Human. This was a very weird series because the only thing I knew about it for a long time was the Cheeks adaptation on Netflix. And that kind of basically took me out of it. But after a while and just seeing a bunch of different conversations on it. People I've trusted talked highly about it. I had to check it out. And I gotta tell you, out of all 3 of these, this is the best one. 86 chapters, the pacing is like the standout quality, in my opinion. Also the support cast, but, the masterclass of pacing, like, it's always, like, a lot of tension, but it's very, like, thought out. Kei Nagai, our main character, he doesn't really waste his time on, like, menial tasks or things that just won't yield positive results. And he stays true to character, but when he does have his developments, it makes sense. Obviously he's the main character here, so there's things that he will eventually care about enough to put out the extra effort that he might have not done that in the beginning. Now, let me go back a bit. So an Ajin is similar to a human, really. The only thing is that they can't die. Now, how do you find out if you are Ajin? You have to die and then come back. So people live their lives, some maybe live their whole life as regular humans, and a crazy freak accident happens, or fate starts, and you basically find out that you are an Ajin. Now, Ajin aren't like some superheroes where they can fly or get stronger. You don't get an amp in stats or anything like that. You just don't die. Now, you can get older and you will die of old age, but you get your head cut off, you won't die. And you can regrow parts of your body. In fact, basically the way it works is if you get chopped up, you will regrow from whatever the largest piece of you there is. And that brings into a lot of interesting and fun dynamics and in the fights, how they work. There's a lot of thought put into how the villain operates. He's a very simple villain, I will tell you that. But that being said, he's a simple villain done really, really, really well. Like, he is the standout character, but like not to where in Innocent where Marie is by far the highlight character. No. There's Tosaki, Kei's really good. Tanaka, I forget the girl's name, but like all of them, they all move logically and feel like in character. You really like come to appreciate where they end up throughout the story. Like, we see the inclusion of new people that you think might not stick around, but they're there for the whole time. There's people that you thought might be gone forever, but they might swing back. And I think that's what's special about it, is all the characters feel human. This is truly a great character story with phenomenal pacing. There's fights in it. It's more of like a strategic battle at some points in the story, which is really cool. And the guy is one of those people where you don't know if he can be redeemed. And it's up to you to make that decision up until the end. I gave this one an easy 9 out of 10 throughout the whole thing. Fun read. Like I said, only 86 chapters. Check that out for sure. Last but not least is Fire Punch by Tatsuki Fujimoto. Now, we all know who Fujimoto is, and I'm sure you've seen Look Back, you've read Goodbye Eri, you read Look Back, Chainsaw Man, the short story, 17 through 21, 22 through 26, or whatever it is. And I mean, let's just be honest. This man is a genius when it comes to writing. Like, I mean, his art, he has fire art too, but the way he wrangles concepts in and he executes on ideas is phenomenal. I'm not a big fan of part 2 of Chainsaw Man, I'll just be honest with you, and I've been reading it from day one. My thing with it, though, is I can see the objective quality to that. I can still respect Chainsaw Man part 2 for what he's, making commentary on, or just his storytelling aspects. Even though it might not be for me subjectively, objectively I still see the quality in it. And that being said, now looking at Fire Punch, I have to say, this story is not a masterclass in any one aspect. This is his first actual serialization series. Obviously we know he has stories that he wrote before this and things like that. But, getting used to the grind of a serialization is very different than writing a one-shot or a novel, this, that, or the other. But we do see flashes of greatness from Fujimoto that harkens to the things we see in Chainsaw Man. We see the inherent quality and greatness of who he is as a writer, but the packaging of it is just a little hard to kind of swallow at times. This is a series that has a lot of sensitive subject matter. You know, it touches on things that are kind of hard to watch. And I mean, you know, just seeing this man like draw these things, and he draws it so viscerally sometimes that I've seen people just kind of like fall out of the series. I personally have read it twice, and each time I take away something different from it. The thing I want to highlight about Fire Punch is its unpredictability. You do not know where this story is going to go. The main character of Fire Punch is Agni. He is a boy that was blessed with the ability to regenerate, him and his sister. Now, they live in a small village, and the story is that the world was frozen over by a witch, and people are born with blessings. You know, different blessings like regeneration, fire, ice, you know, and it gets kind of crazy, some of the things you get to see with that, though. But it's also a very interesting, like, presentation of just how cruel the world could be, depending on the situation, the scenario, and your own personal situation in life where you might kind of fall. And what I mean by that is, since the world's frozen over, it's hard to grow food. The world is struggling with, you know, a food shortage. Not just that though, but also extreme cold weather. So if you don't die by the cold, you're going to die of hunger. And in the village where Agni and his sister live, it's just them. They feed the villagers pieces of Agni's body. Now he still feels pain, so when he cuts off like an arm and he makes food out of it, he's doing it so he can feed the other villagers. Like, that's a very noble thing to do, but it's also fucked. It's very, there's a lot of that in this series, but it gets so much worse. If you're really into dark things, like, this is for you for sure. But, you know, I was able to get through it. You know, I don't really have a weak stomach. I can just accept the story for, like, the story that is being told. In the first chapter, there's a group of people that come to the village where Agni and his sister live. But the thing is, though, they notice that there's body parts, like, being dried out and things like that. They think that they're cannibals because they see that. Now, there's this guy, Doma, who's leading them, and his blessing is, it's the Amaterasu, basically, but not black. You know, his won't stop burning until the thing that he set on fire is to a crisp. And he nukes the whole village. His sister and him, they can both regenerate. No one else can. They all die. His sister just can't go on anymore. They're sitting there burning, regenerating, burning. His sister loses the will to live, gives up, but she tells her brother to live. It's those words, almost like a curse, to keep him pushing, keep him like fighting to like want to survive in this cruel world. And in so many years, he sits there just repeatedly being burnt, heal, burnt, heal, burnt, heal. And it takes him years before he can finally get up. And now at this point, the only thing that isn't burnt on him is a little selection of his face. Everything else is just on fire. But he now doesn't feel it anymore. So you can kind of guess, in a frozen world, you see a man on fire that can bring warmth, heat. He can alleviate the issue of dying to extreme cold. He would be revered as a god, right? The issue is, though, this young man hasn't aged mentally. In fact, he's degressed. Imagine sitting there wallowing in pain to the point where you can't feel no more. He does experience that trauma of burning that whole time until he just basically just grows immune to it. So he's a tank of a person. Like, he gets up jacked, like, honestly. But, you know, anything he touches will catch the flames, because those flames aren't his. Those flames are Doma's flames. It's just his regeneration won't allow him to die. That's Fire Punch. It's a pretty dark story. There's some crazy characters, and I think it's unpredictability and just the batshit crazy moments you get. It's a fun read. Like I said, not a masterclass in any right, but a fun read nonetheless. And I mean, those are the three. This is just this is really just a yap video, just to kind of get my legs back under me while I create content. You might be surprised I came back so soon, but I miss making content. I'm still dealing with some family issues, but you know, that's neither here nor there. And I will do some more cam videos while I work on like the one big project, which is a Freyren video about the villain that will be introduced in season 2. So be on the lookout for that, and I'll be steadily working on that until it about the anime comes out. Well, guys, thanks for staying for the whole video. I appreciate you watching. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and see you later. Peace.